Hey everyone, this is Ultra Runner. Welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to take a quick look, well I guess not quick look, probably a little bit of a longer form video. We'll take a quick look at a collection and just kind of go over some of the pieces I have and which makes each shelf kind of broken out the way it's broken out. And also really the most important thing was like, what figures were the hardest to acquire and why they're the hardest to acquire. Because a lot of people collecting are looking for certain things and they kind of go, oh, well, this is a great idea. And I get a lot of ideas from some of the YouTubers I watch. So I want to kind of do the same thing for you guys, but what I have, because I know some of the things I have is unique. How I curate is a little unique compared to a lot of other collectors. So just kind of want to go through that. So I'm going to start right quick, first of all, with my Captain America collection. So for this one here, you can see I've got the Hot Toys Falcon Sam Wilson cap. And then I've got basically a representation. This is all SHF and Mafex. So that's the pretty much every version of them from every one that they've made, for MCU. And of course, I do have a couple more coming, but they just aren't out yet, literally. But this is every version. And so I would say for this shelf here, probably the hardest to acquire was going to be one is this one I made is a Brave New World, my version of it. Of course, it's not technically out yet, but just from the promos, this is the SHF in-game Captain America with the Falcon, SHF Falcon headed with the goggles on. So that was probably that was kind of neat because it took me some time and did some kit bashing to make that work. But if I had to look at it from a collection standpoint, easily the hardest to acquire was this Mafex in-game Captain America. I mean, one, it's a really good looking figure. They did a great job with it, great proportions. The shoulders are a little wonky, so that makes it a little odd. But aside from that, it is, even on the market now, third party, or you look at eBay and trying to pick that up, that figure goes for like $300 pre-owned. It's nuts. But it just was very, I'm guessing, very limited production because, like I say, they just weren't out, and of course I wasn't collecting at the time. But that's just definitely one of the ones I would say if I had to pick on this shelf what was the hardest to acquire. That's definitely the one there. Go down to the next shelf. This is my MCU shelf here. So this has a little bit of everything on it. In-game Infinity War, and just kind of like my canon essentially for this for the MCU. So I got Shang-Chi on here, Black Widow from her movie, okay, Spider-Man's of course from No Way Home, a little bit of everything. But for this shelf here, I would definitely say, if I had to say which one was the hardest to acquire and the most difficult to get, it would be this Black Widow here in the snowsuit. This was a SHF Tamashii Nations web exclusive, so you just couldn't get her regular. Importing her was the only option, and of course, if you ever bought any of the Tamashii web exclusives, they are just super, super hard to get. And when you do get them, they're typically really marked up. Like BBTS had her for a while, but definitely not cheap, I'd say. But really, just the fact that it came in and out of stock so quick because they might have got one here or two here, and then somebody would buy it. So that would be the one for that shelf there. All right, so for this shelf here, it's kind of funny because this situation has changed a bit for my Transformer shelf, and that's my Transformer hero side. So if you guys see my collection tour video, the other side is actually my ops. So for this shelf here, of all the figures here, probably the hardest to acquire at the time was Studio Series Jazz. Studio Series Jazz was like $80 brand new, which is insane for like a $25 figure, $29 figure. Of course, now pricing has gotten a lot better because the 5-pack came out and there's a better, I would say more accurate Jazz, you want to call it. But before that one, I would definitely say it was Jazz. Now I would say it's Ultra Magnus. Ultra Magnus is, I don't know if they just didn't print enough of these guys because they didn't think he was going to sell, even though I think he's one of the most incredible Transformers I've ever dealt with. But aside from that, it's just he's now like on secondary market and it is crazy expensive. So I would say he's definitely it now because Jazz is pretty reasonably priced. I was going to come back to the shelf, but I'll go ahead and go here now. So for this shelf here, this one's that's no brainer. If any of you guys know anything about SHF, you know anything about Dragon Ball Z, that Broly figure is an SCCC 2018 exclusive. He is quite literally, value-wise, the most expensive figure I have in my collection. I mean, one, Broly's are only SCCC, so that's the problem. That's one of the issues with SHF. They don't make regular prints of those guys. And since they're SCC and limited, and it's Broly, and everybody loves Broly, and Broly is literally my favorite DBZ character, period. That thing goes for, I could buy 2 Falcons for what that guy sells for, used on secondary market. It's crazy how expensive he is, but yeah, he's definitely the hardest to get for sure. For this shelf here, you would think it's the Cell Studio Unicron, but actually not. It's actually Scourge. So if you guys see here, I have my setup here. I have the sweeps, which are a different color. They're the lighter blue, and I have them a couple on flight stands and just kind of pose flying around Unicron's feet. But I've got Scourge here, and Scourge in this kind of purplish blue color. He is still very hard to find, even on the secondary market, and they want a ton for him. Like he's more in a commander class. I think I've seen him the cheapest, maybe like $60 or $70 for used, and then like for new unsealed, they want him, or sealed, they want him like $150, $120. So that's kind of nuts. But the Cell Studio was kind of a hard one to get, but they re-released them recently, so I would say definitely. It's not bad at all. I mean, he is not scaled like the Hasbro HasLab version, but this is, we're not even close, the way better looking version. Great color, great movie accuracy. I mean, no kibble. He's not one of these part formers like the HasLab is. Yes, the HasLab would be nice to have the size, but this guy's amazing. But that's a whole other different story. All right, so we go down here. This is my Marvel Comics and just really I guess Marvel Comics shelf. This has a little bit of my X-Men 97, which, like I've said before, I kind of collect how I collect and my favorite versions of those figures. And I've got a couple here that are just ones I picked up recently, like, the Power Prince. Well, I had Power Princess for a while. I just got the Warbird. But of all these, I'd probably say the hardest to get quite easily really is probably Warbird. And I would say she's hard to get because in my area, she wasn't available. So I had to eventually, after being out for a while, I had to drive a very long way to get her. But so I could find her on eBay for, $60. So it wasn't like super horrible. But outside of that, it was definitely Gambit. Gambit is, that Mafex Gambit is stellar in every way. Fit finish, the wired jacket, the effects. They did a phenomenal job with this guy. But he definitely was the hardest to get, I would say, across the board. Now, we're going to compositions. If you notice here, that's a really unique looking Storm. But this is the Storm head from the X-Men 97 Marvel Legends on the Mafex body. Because I really prefer the look of the Mohawk. And I'm not a big fan of the Storm head that came with it. It's not that it wasn't great. It was actually really good. But the figure body, this is easily superior between the quality of the capes, the paint, the boots all the way up to the thigh. You just can't beat that at all. So on this shelf, I would have to say probably the Storm overall would be like the hardest figure the hardest one to do because it was an expensive kit bash between two different figures. All right, we go down to the next shelf here in the center. This is my Dinobots. This is pretty much, when Prime comes, Prime will go on this shelf too. But this is the group that was on ship with Prime. You know, we got Sunstreak and Hound in the background, but I mean, everybody knows. You look at this shelf, everyone already knows which one's the most difficult to get, and that is Studio Series 86 Grimlock. This guy is being finally re-released next year, but he is crazy expensive in the aftermarket. You know, loose. You know, he's going for well over $100 in a box. With the box, you know, open, he's going for $150. And man, if you find him new in the box, he's going for over $200. It's crazy. You know, is he worth that? I don't really think so. I think he's definitely something that you have to have for your collection. But if you can relate to the re-release, you know, that's definitely it. But if you can't wait, that's what you got to do to get him going. So for my Boba Fett shelf, this is going to go over, as you guys see. I kind of made my own in-universe canon where Boba Fett's the daimyo. He runs Tatooine. He also runs Mandalore. He is the man, which he should have been, not the version that we got in the show. But for this shelf here, and that's the Mafex version, of course, and the SHF Figure Arts throne. But for this shelf, all the Blue Mandos that I can get, plus some kit bashes, then the Mafex Din Djarin, and also the Mafex Bo-Katan, which is just exceptional. Katie Sackhoff all day long. And a couple kit bashes here for my Blue Mandos. I've got the Big Scalene, which was, of course, has two different figures with the Bo-Katan body. And for the kit bash, I had Nakia with the Bo-Katan Credit Collection body. But of all these, probably the hardest to acquire, as you can probably guess, is Gus. That's, you know, shout out to Robo. Making Gus was, you know, a Black Series figure, the Range Trooper from the Solo movie. And then that's actually had the Marvel Legend Ego, and it came with two head sculpts. That's the smiling one. And then those beer cups, beer mugs, essentially, was something to buy separately too. So that was definitely a hard one to get, just because it had so many different moving parts. But it was kind of cool to have something that really was just a Robo kind of deal. So pretty neat. And that's just kind of also show my respect for Robo, and I love his channel, love what he does for the community. So now we have my DCEU shelf. So for DCEU, got a little bit of here. It really was just Snyderverse, because I mean, you guys know me, I'm a huge Snyder fan, and so I love, you know, Justice League Snyder Cut version, pretty awesome. And then of course the Wonder Woman movie. Say what you will about it, the figures from it were pretty amazing. And I mean, Gal Gadot, let's just be real, I'll watch her, you know, make peanut butter sandwiches all day long if I could. So, but for this shelf here, probably the most difficult to acquire, and is going to be my version of Wonder Woman for the shelf, and that was this SHF Wonder Woman from the '84 movie, because I really like the vibrance compared to the Mafex version, which is this one here. And the Mafex version is a little paler. It doesn't quite have the Gal Gadot look. And the suit's a little duller, which is movie accurate. But I really like the '84 version here. And then to make her, she's also a kit bash, because her sword and shield are actually from the Mezco Wonder Woman back here. Because as you guys know, the SHF Wonder Woman from the '84 movie only came with a lasso. So that was a little bit of a pricey kit bash, but you know, this is the version I wanted, and she's still, to me, to this day, the absolute best version of Wonder Woman in 6-inch form. I mean, she really looks like the Hot Toys version. So, all right, we're gonna go down to the other Transformer shelf. I guess I got 4 of them, but this is technically my movie shelf, kinda, sorta, SS86 movie, but this is mainly ops. So at one point in time, all these guys were oppositions at Autobots, or they became friends later, like, you know, the Sharkticons, of course. Grimlock put them in line, so they became, you can call it an ally. And then of course the Junkions, I'm still missing Scrap Heap, but I can pick him up really anytime. But for this shelf here, probably the hardest to acquire. Um, a lot of people, I would say, probably would say Jetfire, but it's really Frenzy. The SS86 Frenzy, super hard to get for some reason. I know a lot of YouTubers are talking about how like they still haven't picked this guy up. I ordered mine from Big Bad and got him pretty quick, and then I've noticed that he's been sold out or on back order forever. I would say probably before he came out or before he was difficult to get, it would have been the Jetfire because Jetfire is, that version here is really like a mini masterpiece. I mean, he's not small by any means, but they did a great job with this War for Cybertron version. And so if you have a chance to pick him up, he is definitely a great fit. And as you got to see, I have him with his Decepticon logo as opposed to his Autobot logo because, of course, initially he was the leader of the Seeker. So that is my Autobot ops for right now until we get more in from the movie. And then the last shelf here, this is my Pops and just little other collectibles here, a little bit of Lego, a little bit of Infinity. I do have the Infinities for my favorite three fictional characters, Boba Fett, Captain America, and Ahsoka. And so just got a few Pops here. Kylo, three versions of Boba, and then some Boba Legos with him in like this suit, and then the slave one, I guess, saying this Boba Fett starship here. And then I'd say probably the hardest to acquire of this shelf here would be my Linkin Park Reanimation Pop. One of my favorite albums of all time. Definitely top 5 for sure. And then the whole Gundam look was such a cool thing, back when that album first dropped. And, I remember playing it through over and over and over again. And, to have a pop that had that kind of still was true to the Gundam look, but not be super toy-wise. Is really, really cool. And Funko does some really neat stuff too. So, I know a lot of people give them a lot of hate, but I definitely think they do a pretty phenomenal job of bringing some of that nostalgia back to us for the stuff that we do, the stuff that we like, especially a lot of that pop stuff. So, our popular figures and stuff like that. So, but that's for this section of the collection here. Let's go to the desk and look at those pieces there. All right, for my desk section, there's just a couple different sections a couple different figures over here. This side here is going to be my staple side. This is going to be Ken the Eagle Storm Collectibles for the Gotcha Man series. And then we've got Roy Flocker's. We got Hijoke's space jet from Macross, and of those two, I mean, easily the Macross jet's going to be the hardest to get. I mean, that's like original. It's got the die cast in it. This was actually a re-release of the original figures, but it was true to the original where it stayed the same. The Jazz is actually the one from the 5-pack, and the reason I have him on desk, I think I told you in the video when I got it out, but this guy was the first Transformer I ever got. He was actually the first toy I got that got me into collecting. So I took the second one out of the pack, transformed him, and he's been in the car on my desk the whole time. All right, let's take a look at the other side of the desk here. All right, for this side of the desk, we have a bust of Boba Fett from Return of the Jedi. And I've got two of the Mafex, Empire Strike Back and Return of the Jedi. Boba Fett, Mafex, Ahsoka, SHF, Daimyo Boba Fett, and then the SHF or the Bandai Movie Realization Boba Fett. So for these here, probably the hardest to get, I would say back then. I mean, because now I would say is probably none of them. They're all pretty easy to get. It just if you want to get them. But when I picked these all up at the time, I would say individually, at the times I received each of them, the Return of the Jedi Boba Fett was really hard to get. I mean, the Daimyo Boba Fett I pre-ordered, so those are easy. The Ahsoka was pre-order. The Empire Strikes Back Boba Fett was always on the shelf, but the Return of the Jedi was actually just hard to get. But now he's not. I mean, they've got him reprinted and really easy. It's pretty easy to pick up from Ami Ami or something like that. So even from BBTS, so and they're pretty reasonable. So, but I would say that was definitely the one that was probably the hardest to get is the Return of the Jedi Boba Fett. Let's go take a look at the set upstairs. Be right back. All right, so for the upstairs section, it's a little more difficult to do this than it was shelf by shelf because, like I say, way I group mine and curate my collection is really by teams, and it's just kind of made up teams I have. So, like for this first section here, this team is basically the OG team or OT team, and so for the OT team, the hardest to get in his group here was the Chewbacca in the back. That's the SHF version from Solo. I just like his look. He wasn't expensive to get. He just was like hard to get because a good Chewie, it's really because a good Chewie is hard to get. The Black Series Chewies are pretty horrible. And I just really like that look. I like him with the blaster and the goggles. So for sure, I would say that's it. For this next section here, this is just basically dark side users and dark side loyalists, essentially, you can say. So for this section here, I would say probably the hardest to get was, I would say probably the Malik. Even though I pre-ordered Malik and Malgus, and the rest of those figures were pretty easy to get, but I mean Malik to this day is like impossible to get. Like he's nowhere. It's crazy. It's like maybe they didn't think he was going to sell well, but this is a phenomenal figure, and if you missed out on him, I just feel sorry for you because if you're a Black Series collector, because this guy is stunning in every way. They did such a great job with him, so hopefully he'll come back and be a little bit easier to get. This middle section here, this is, basically 501st and Jedi's, my kind of Clone Wars trilogy combination guys here, along with some of my Ahsokas. In this section here, none of these are really hard to get, but the hardest, of course, like with anybody, it goes without saying, is Captain Rex. Captain Rex, before his re-release was announced, this guy was going for $100 used in a box, let alone getting them new in a box. And I got a really good deal on them, so, but I did pay way over price because, of course, I wasn't collected at the time. I've only been collecting for about 2.5 years, or recollecting for 2.5 years. So he was definitely the hardest to get, and I'm glad that everybody's going to get an opportunity to get this guy without any issue and without being super expensive going forward. I mean, he is easily more expensive than most of all these other figures here. This section here is kind of like my Mandalore or my Mando kind of Rebel section here. So for this part here, and I do have like Pre-Visual in there, the Death Watch guys, but for this section here, really, if I say the hardest to get, was probably Hondo. Hondo was kind of hard to get, even though he's not like super expensive. It was just like nobody had him for sale. So I really wanted a Hondo because he's just such a pivotal character from Rebels, and it just was hard to get. So this is the version I got, which is the only version available, of course. I think he was like a Disney exclusive or something like that. Might be why, Disney Store or Disneyland exclusive or something like that. Move over here. This team here, everybody knows the Delta Squad. And the funny thing about the Delta Squad is they were super easy to get because I passed on these guys because I was like, I don't even know anything about them. Didn't really care much about them until I realized they were going to finish the team. And when they say finish the team, everyone wanted Boss, and Boss was impossible to get. I remember they were selling this guy for like $100, and it's like, dude, that is nuts because he was on sale at GameStop for like $9.99 closeout or something like that. It was crazy, but that's what happens when they finish out the team because nobody thought they'd ever finish out the team. But Boss was the one that everybody wanted that nobody got. So, so he was an easy no-brainer as far as the hardest to get. Here, this is one of my favorite sections. This is my CIS droids. The Super Battle droids are new. They just came out, so they were easy to get. So along with the Droidicas, SHF B1 Battle droids were probably the hardest to get because these were a re-release, but even they weren't really hard to get. But I would definitely say they're my favorite droids, period, to have in my collection. Like, they are just phenomenal. The articulation, the look, the paint, the feel, the quality of the plastic. They just, well, when they destroyed the Black Series version, and then for the in comparison, to the Black Series, they're just much better. But across the board, it's just, they make the collection. They just make me. That's the ones that I just really enjoy the most. So this section here is basically all my Inquisitors. Inquisitors are like figures, and I just kind of put the Vision twins together just because they have that same look, like the Inquisitors. So they look just like the Inquisitors with the whole layout and stuff like that. And so got all those guys together there. And if you guys have been collecting for a while, the hardest person in this collection to get was Merrick, if you're looking for a Black Series wise, because nobody wanted him, and then now they announced they're not making him anymore. So he is super, super hard to get. But another one that's really tough to get is this SHF Vader from Kenobi. This is easily best 6-inch version of Vader because you can just have this damaged skull, damaged helmet, and then you can also go with the non-damaged look. And the cape's a little finicky, but I mean, that's just not a big deal at all. This team here, that's, those are not hard to get, Mike or Krill, and then you move into the Bad Batch, Bad Batch is like my favorite, probably, group of guys. And for these guys here, probably the hardest to get out of, I would say, all the Bad Batch is going to be really now Season 2. Because it used to be Hunter and Crosshair, but they re-released those guys, so they were easy to get for a long time, really long time. But the Bad Batch Season 2, everybody wants those guys now, and they are just nowhere. I've seen them pop up here and there on Walmart.com, and I've seen them in the store maybe once or twice, but when I bought my set, when they first came out, I didn't pre-order, but I bought them in store, and they've been super expensive ever since. This section here is part of my Boba Fett section because I do have some downstairs, and these are just some of the Black Series versions. The Kenner, well, not the Kenner, but the cartoon, the prototype. And of these Boba Fett's I have here, probably the hardest to get and to acquire is going to be this SHF version here of Return of the Jedi Boba Fett. He's just really hard to get because he's not a great figure, and a lot of people opened them and just kind of was like, okay, put it away. But I found one new in the box, so I did pick him up. I think he looks really good in a static position, but he's not nearly as good as the Mafex, not even close. And honestly, this Return of the Jedi Boba Fett from Star Wars Black Series is pretty phenomenal as well. So definitely a great figure to look at, but not a great figure to pose. And for this section here, it's a little bit of finishing out the Guardians of the Galaxy. This is the SHF Star-Lord and Rocket with the Black Series. Rest of the crew there. Got Ego in the back. That's the body and one of the heads for the Ego I used to make Gus. But of all these here, like I said, I would just pick my favorite version of all these. None of these were easy or hard to find. Like, none of them. It just was a matter of, do I want to buy them here and there. But for the most part, if I had to pick one, I'd say the hardest would be the Wasp. It was hard to find her because everybody had them used, and I wanted one new because her suit looked so good, and I didn't want it to be grubby or dusty or anything like that at all. But I do like that Wasp from Quantumania, so she was definitely the hardest to get at that particular point here. For this section here, this was my Transformers collabs crossovers, and I've had the Mace Windu Starfighter since they've released, so that's something I had for a long time. The rest of them I just kind of picked up here and there. pre-orders, like the van, or just ones I just picked up in the store. But I would say of all these, probably the hardest to get was the Boba Fett Slave One, because there's not a lot of them that were new, and I wanted one new because you guys know I'm a big Boba Fett freak, and I wanted one that wasn't all dirty or sitting around for a long time, because those toys are pretty old. I mean, they're like 15 years old, so I didn't want anything that was all grubby or whatever. I think maybe a little bit older than that too. For this section here, this is just like the part of my G1 collection that I do have. So you've got, I'm just kind of paying through this right quick. Along with the Ark, you've got Wheeljack and, you know, Bumblebee and Jazz from the first episode, and then you've got the Tetra Jazz, and then Vector Sigma, and, you know, Orion Pax, that whole little set. And that set was pretty hard to get, I would say. But of all of these, probably the hardest to get was going to be Wheeljack. Wheeljack was, even though he was Target exclusive, he should have been pretty easy to get, but he was not. The pre-order went like blazingly fast, and then he was never on sale. I ended up buying this cat off eBay, but I was like, you know what? Like, I waited a while before I decided to spend the money and spend a lot. It was like 20 bucks extra, so it wasn't horrible. But it's one of those things where it was kind of stupid, because Target seems to do that. Like, same thing with Warbird. It's like, order a bunch of them and you'll sell a bunch of them. Don't just order like 5 of them from Hasbro. But, you know, it is what it is. But that is the last of it, guys. So hope you guys enjoyed the video, and comment down below what's your most difficult figure that you had to acquire that you really wanted, or if you had to do a kit bash and you had to buy 3 figures to make one. Let me know down below. Thanks a lot. Catch you on the next one. Later.